Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. And it is time for another special guest. And I have a special guest all the way from Georgia, Arthur Atsma. I got connected with him when I lived in Georgia, and we attended a church, and there was a leadership function where they hired him to be the entertainment. And we got connected there and stayed connected ever since. Arthur, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on with you.
Oh, wow, Andy. Well, my name's Arthur Atsma. I moved here to Georgia, just out north of Atlanta. We're in the Ackworth area, Ackworth, Woodstock, just a little bit over 15 years ago as part of a church plant team. And my wife and our 6 kids, we moved here, really felt God call us to this area. And we've been living here and been involved with our church and doing a lot of different things. It's been fantastic. I mean, yeah, I can go on and on about details, but where do I start?
So tell me about your world of magic.
Oh, wow. Okay. As a kid, I've always loved watching magic. I've always been enthralled with it. The excitement of how on earth did that happen? And my parents, I grew up on a dairy farm in Oregon. We didn't have, there wasn't like a magic store too close by. But there was the library, and at school there was the library, and I discovered the librarian actually showed me some really cool books on sleight of hand and tricks you could make yourself. I also had a little magic kit as a kid that had the tricks, that you would do, the basic, ball and vase, little rings and ropes and stuff like that. But then also a book in there of 100 other tricks you could do with stuff you could just find at home. And I did. I learned how to do those things. All the stuff that I learned was self-taught, in doing sleight of hand. But I also, at the same time, I had a love for music. I started playing piano at 7. Couldn't wait, actually. My mom, they made me wait till I was 7 because they said that's the good time to start. And started piano lessons when I was 7. And so as I grew up doing music and doing little magic tricks and loving all sorts of shows, we would have a festival that would come into our town in Mount Angel, Oregon, called the Oktoberfest, year after year. And always a little circus act would come in. And also a group called the Royal Liechtenstein Circus would show up, the world's smallest circus. And they were fantastic. They did juggling and magic tricks and story told, and it wasn't hard to find me. I would be at those shows the whole day from being a young kid. I'd watch every show they did too. I would watch, the circus show would do their thing, and then there'd be a break. There'd be a puppet show, like a Punch and Judy puppet show, which you don't see those anymore. And then I would see the circus act, and then by the time they were done, the other circus act would have their next act going on, and I'd stay there the whole day, watch everything.
So how long have you been doing magic, and what have you been doing now since magic has taken a turn?
It's taken a turn. So I've been performing magic professionally for, just a little bit over 30 years. After I got married and was going through college, I played piano at a couple different resort areas. There's a little golf club close by us at Western Oregon University. I played piano there and also did close-up magic for the patrons. And when I graduated from college, and I ended up with a degree in music composition, and also I minored in the theater arts. And I got a job right out of college in Vail, Colorado. And there I did the same thing, working for a children's theater company called the Beaver Creek Children's Theater. And I would do soundtracks behind the performances that we'd do. And then I would also have like a 7-minute magic set that I would also do. And it just grew. I then got a job working at the Inn at Beaver Creek, being the house entertainer, playing piano for après-ski, and doing close-up magic on top of the little baby grand piano. And did that for a number of years, worked in a variety of venues, and started getting corporate work while out there. And after our first child was born, my wife and I decided we really felt it's time to move out of here. And we moved back to Oregon from Colorado. And then we lived in Oregon again for several years, and our family built up and grew. until we had 6 kids. And then we really felt a calling. Yeah, we really felt a real strong push, a real strong call by God to come move here to Georgia and be a part of a church planting team, which we did. And that was just a little over 15 years ago. Yeah, and we've changed churches since then, but we're still real good. 3 of my children are married and grown up, and 3 of them are still at home. They're all attending college remotely now, and so, but yeah, so it's been a real interesting. It's been an interesting life so far.
You know, when we were chatting and getting caught up, we were talking about how we have to reinvent ourselves professionally, and also ministry wise too. And where do we minister? How do we minister? And now that the world's closing in on a video screen, how do we do that? And that's probably been a real challenge for you, adjusting not only your music, but especially your magic shows and such to that world, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's definitely interesting. You know, I'm going from doing, I don't know, over 100 and some odd shows, performances, like, I don't know, maybe 150 a year to 200 roughly. It's hard, depends on the flux. To, you know, for live performances, to, wow, there hasn't been one, since March. And you know, it's real interesting to watch, you know, a scheduled, you know, performance calendar that should have, you know, ended in December, because that's usually where it goes. You know, I usually get booked up quite a bit in advance, to just, you know, just after the 13th or whatever it was in March, just cancellation. And, but a few of them have shifted and gone to the virtual route. And I think it's such a young venue. I'm figuring it out, how to start to play comfortably with it.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mean by that is when you walk out on a stage and you're doing a show, you know, that first, hopefully I've been able to scan the audience, you know, before I get out there and kind of get a feel of the vibe. But, you know, when you walk out and start performing, that first 90 seconds of your opening routine is, how are they reacting to this? Do they like it? How do I need to adjust my timing? How do I need to adjust my speech? And and then you build that rapport with your audience as you build the show, and you know, you have the amazing, wonderful things that happen. And then the audience participation element of it is so key into a live performance, and that's just like, let's go. You know,
you know, a lot of my friends that still do stand-up comedy, and when I did stand-up comedy for a while, that first minute, if you don't get them in the first minute, you're gone. And
it's gonna be a long 45 minutes, pal.
And you look forward to that reaction to the audience. Yeah. And if you don't have that in the video screen, you're speaking to a camera. It's quite the adjustment.
Well, it is, and I think that's one of the bigger parts of the adjustment. I remember I did back already. I think it was in May. I did a couple, like a Cinco de Mayo virtual party for a group, and then I also did a bingo thing. And so I'm down there in the basement. You know, I got the you know, my screen set up, and got my tables set up, and I'm doing everything, and it just hit me at some point. I'm going, wow, you know, I've rehearsed in front of this camera many times. And I started thinking in my head as I'm performing, oh, wait a minute, I hope I didn't go into rehearsal mode and go, well, I just going to fix this thing over here again because I botched it up, and just because you're used to it, you know. And and I was like, no, you didn't. And just having that, really trusting that there's an audience on the other side of it, and then really trying to pour your heart out into it with what you're doing to communicate that across the camera. That's probably one of the bigger challenges, because you don't get to see micro expressions. You don't get to see a frown or a ha 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 or a laugh or so it's, and you know, you want your performances to always be authentic, and they can tend to lose a bit of that if you're, you know.
So what projects are you working now in this different environment? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's in some ways it's been really nice. Musically, I've really felt an opportunity to expand and try to do some things that are a little bit more out there artistically that I haven't. I sort of put on hold. I've always, you know, to be practical with my music, I've made things very soundtracky, and to really fit, you know, the act that I'm doing. Whether it's just a little bass line in the back. Hold on, I got a crazy dog here. Oh, this is. You gonna be all right, buddy? Yeah, he gets a little nervous when it's down here. I've always done things that have been really soundtracky, just based upon, you know, what it is that I'm going to be doing, which is fun. But now I've music projects. I've looked at a friend of mine, Marlon Yoder's, put out some paintings, and I started to soundtrack those. He did the Four Horsemen, and they're beautiful paintings. So I've been putting some soundtrack music to those, just as an expression. You know, you got to get things out. You have to, and how do you do that and still have an element? What elements do you want in there, and all that kind of stuff. So musically, I've been working on things like that. Magically, I'm working right now on making all of my routines as sort of like little mini parables, without being over preachy, but just to show some things of God's kingdom in contrast with how things in the world work. And then how do we pull those things together? How do we bring in the world into, how do we view the world in God's kingdom encompassing manner? It's not an easy task.
No, it's not. And you know, I think back of my wife and I, our many years of children's ministry through the years. We've learned the message the church has made the message so complex that we don't understand it. Yeah. Jesus said, unless you come to me as a child. Well, why don't we bring the message down like a child, so that we could get a hold of the good news that God has for us? And sometimes those parables, just without, like you said, without being preachy, parable is what people need to hear for hope.
Yeah. Well, and it also needs to be listenable. You
know,
you've got to make, if you're going to do a parable, you better, make it in a way that somebody wants to listen to it and watch it, and then also have the truth be strong enough that it'll cut through everything else. Yeah.
Well, it sounds very interesting what you're doing, and I'm glad to get connected with you.
Oh, thanks.
And what we're going to do is we're going to have down below. I'm going to have you add in the comment section your email address, so people can get a hold of you, connect with you, and find out what you're doing. Find out, is this something that maybe you could partner with? Because I think God's got great things for all of us, if we'll just listen and just put ourselves out there for God to move us into the next direction.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think that's it's really funny where you just talked about, where you and your wife worked with children's ministry and stuff. And I think the most consistent program that I've had in the last couple months since the shutdown was with our church, and with my wife and I and our family. We attend His Hands Church in Woodstock. And I've been recording little snippets for the kids online, sort of the kids' Sunday school, as we would call it, Sunday school programs. And I get a little 3-minute chunk to do something that relates with what they're talking about. And, it's the cool thing that I always find about it is when I've done shows in the past, people have always said, "Oh, I loved your show. I wish my kids would have seen it." And I think what they're relating is, you made me feel like a kid again.
Absolutely. And
I think that's a real key thing in performing magic. My goal as a performer is to make everybody feel like a kid again, because when you're a kid, everything's new. There's this wonder, how did that, there's the joy of, that happened. And all those elements that as children are so free to express, and adults tend to kind of hold some of those things in, because it's like, well, I've got all the answers. I know how everything works. And so in doing, magic, especially as a parable, hopefully, if I can do it properly, it opens that up again. So they can be a bit like a kid. You can say
Arthur,
that.
I want to thank you and your dog for joining us today. And we're going to close things now. And
Fantastic.
I want to encourage people to get a hold of Arthur or pass this whole interview on to somebody else, because there's some things in this interview that others need to hear. And so thank you for your faithfulness to the kingdom
Oh,
of God
thanks.
and your unique talents that you have. And may God richly bless you. And may all of you on Morning Moments be blessed and know that God cares for you and has got a plan for your life. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.